Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Shimonkevitz. I've got some good news to share with you, and I'm sharing it with my home parish family because I have had your support. Um, I've had your support in my formation to become a deacon. I got the news last week that I have been approved for ordination in June to be a vocational deacon. So I'm very excited about that. I've been working hard, and it's been a few years, and I know that I've gotten support from St. Francis, from my home parish. I know a lot of people are praying for me and supporting me, and you're part of my formation, so you need to know about this too. So I'm all excited about that. So, what I wanted to talk with you today about is the correlation between deacon's ordination vows, which I'll be taking in June, and your baptismal vows, the renewal of your baptismal vows. So we have this handy resource, right? The Book of Common Prayer. You may have a copy at home yourself, or you can always go online and get one. There is a copy available online that you can use to look at. And so I wanted to start with the renewal of ordination, or renewal of baptismal vows, the baptismal covenant that we see in the service for holy baptism. So if you have a copy of the Book of Common Prayer, you can make your way to page 305. Page 305. And at the top of that page continues some of the questions that you get when you renew your baptismal vows. One of them is, will you proclaim by word and example the good news of God in Christ? And we usually respond with, I will, with God's help. And then we're asked, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? And we respond, I will, with God's help. And then we're asked, will you strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being? And we answer, I will, with God's help. That's part of the renewal of baptismal vows, right? Again, that's on page 305 in the Book of Common Prayer. And not long after that, on page 543 in the Order for Service for Ordination of Deacons, you'll see there's a page called the Examination, right? Page 305, or I'm sorry, page 543. And the bishop has a good bit to say there, and one of the things that is said by the bishop is, you are to make Christ and his redemptive love known by your word and example to those among whom you live and work and worship. Make Christ and his redemptive love known by your word and example. There's that same phrase that was in your baptismal vows. And here it is in the ordination vows. How about that? And then you are to interpret to the church the needs, concerns, and hopes of the world. So if I'm proclaiming by word and example the good news of God in Christ, according to my baptismal vows, and I'm seeking and serving Christ in all persons, loving my neighbor as myself, and if I'm striving for justice and peace among all people, and respecting the dignity of every human being, I think I'm helping to live out my diaconal vows too, right? That I'm making Christ and his redemptive love known by word and example, that I'm interpreting to the church the needs, concerns, and hopes of the world, interacting with my neighbor, loving my neighbor as myself, and striving for justice and respecting the dignity of every human being. And when I see that those things aren't happening, seeing that that's a need in the world and bringing that back to the church and talking about how we as a people, we as a parish, we as ambassadors of Christ, we as bearers of light help to proclaim that gospel and God's redemptive love to the neighborhood and to Timonium, to Baltimore County, to Maryland, and all the places that we go. We are bearers of light. We're bearers of Christ. And we don't just carry him around while we're sitting there in church or going to a Eucharist service. We don't just bear him to the people we know go to church with us. We carry him everywhere that we go. And so the vows that I intend to take in June are a direct relation to the renewal of my baptismal vows that I take every time I go to a baptism, right? Every time there's a baptism, we do this. And they are linked. Those things are linked. And that means that all of us who are baptized can do this work. All of us can proclaim the good news. All of us can enable service to others because we are Christ bearers, we are light bearers, and we go out into the world. We go out into the neighborhood. We go out into traffic, right? We go into stores. We go into meetings. And we bear him with us. And so the things that a deacon does in a church service, proclaiming the gospel by reading the gospel, that's a ritual, that's a liturgical role, that's a symbol of what the deacon does outside of that scenario, right? The same is true of setting the table for Eucharist. The deacon does that, setting the wine and the bread and serving, right? Taking a servant role. That's a liturgical role, which is a symbol, which is then carried outside. It's carried outside that, the liturgy, into the world. The same is true of the deacon who stands at the door, dismissing the people after the priest's blessing, because the deacon does not bless anybody or anything. The priest does that. But after the blessing, there's the dismissal at the door. And the deacon sends people out to do the work that they've been called to do in their baptismal vows. The deacon says, all right, folks, here we go. You've been, as a baptized person, you are to proclaim by word and example the good news of God in Christ. You are to seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself. You are to strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being. Here I am at the door sending you out. You've got your orders. Those are your vows. And I take them too. I do this work with you. But the deacon sends you out at the door. So there's a direct correlation between baptismal vows and the vows of a deacon. I just thought I'd share that with you. I hope you have a great Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope that you share with me my joy at hearing this news, because I am not formed as a deacon alone in isolation. I'm not formed as a Christian in isolation. You are part of my formation, and I thank you for your support. And my formation's not over. Yours isn't over. It doesn't stop. But I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.